Let's bring in our next guest now, saying that India is currently one of the most attractive equity markets in the world, and bring in Tanvi, Kanchan, Vice President and Head of Strategy at Anand Rathi Shares and Stockbrokers. One of the most attractive. What makes you think so?
Hi, thank you for having me over. So, I think with regards to the Indian equity market, there are three major factors that are driving the equity market, or that we consider good with regards to long term. So, we have fundamentals, that is macro, we have corporate earnings, and then we have the liquidity. As far as Indian fundamentals are concerned, with regards to its peers, or with regards to even the other emerging markets, India is well placed. Even in the IMF, even in the IMF growth projection that it had, it did peg India higher than its other peers. With regards to the interest rate and the interest rate policy, although we are in the tightening of the interest rate, however, it is in line, and somewhere the equity markets have considered or have taken into consideration the hike in the interest rate. Third part of it is where we say liquidity. We have seen a lot of withdrawal with regards to foreign investments in India. However, the domestic investments do continue to remain positive, and there was a very good chunk of domestic investment that continued to remain positive even when we saw withdrawal of the foreign investments from India. So with regards to all of these factors, at least the Indian economy is well placed in consideration to its other peers.
How are you assessing the earnings that we've seen so far? We have seen some revisions that are, I guess, rolling over, or at least looking a little like more flat now in terms of the revisions lower. I'm just wondering, have we actually fully priced in the growth concerns, the peak pessimism?
So I agree. My view on the main downside risk, if you ask me, with regards to the Indian economy, is coming from the global crude prices, the pace of the tightening of the monetary policy, interest rate, liquidity, and the discontinuation of the fiscal stimulus in mainly the developed economies also. The weight suggests that, so right now we are looking at crude somewhere around $90 per barrel, which in the second half of 2022, which is almost $40 lower than the peak that we have seen in the recent past and the elevated numbers that we have seen in the last 12 months. Higher prices will keep the outperformance of the Indian equities also in line with the peers, and we will obviously have a very limited returns in the short term. In the near term, we do expect the policy tightening in the developed countries. If it is more than what we are expecting, we are expecting a certain negative surprise also in the Indian equities to have a blowback here. At the same time, signs of broader based growth and slowdown with fear of recession is likely to make the policy authorities in the developed countries more circumstantial in continuation with the policy. Therefore, beyond a short-term policy tightening and slowdown, at least with regards to long-term, we are expecting that the markets should go up after this particular state.
So, Tanvi, looking all quite positive, what about what you're seeing in terms of foreign inflows? Are you seeing foreigners wanting to return to India in a bigger proportion, I guess, than what we saw maybe 12 months ago?
So absolutely. As I indicated earlier, there are three major factors that drive your fundamentals, which is both macro as well as corporate earnings, liquidity flow, and equity market valuation. Now, in terms of fundamentals and valuation, as I said, India is well placed and most of the other major economies. The domestic flow towards the Indian markets are also supportive with regards to Indian equities. The global risk, as we mentioned earlier, with regards to foreign portfolio, there we saw an outflow from the Indian markets, which were the main reason why the Indian equities were, all-time low after they hit their all-time high in October 21. As a major part of the global risk is priced in Indian markets, in the absence of any fresh shock or negative news, the markets may likely not have too much consolidation and also rally if the in the Indian investors risk also comes back. While India has corrected and faced a lot of outflow, we are expecting that the foreign investors, at least in comparison to the emerging markets, will see how well placed India is and continue their investments back with regards to inflows in India.
And perhaps one of those shocks was the currency moves, particularly last week. And then we heard from Shaktikanta Das on Friday, basically saying they are not going to see any further, well, they hope they don't see any further bumpy moves in the rupee. If we do continue to see elevated weakness, though, how does that change your outlook?
With regards to short term, I think we might see a certain degree of outflow if there are any short term news or if there are any short term shocks with regards to what hasn't already been taken into consideration. But again, the short term volatility, we're not expecting it to persist anything after or beyond, the next 3-4 months. So we are expecting the interest rate policy hikes, any further, inflation shocks also to be considered or taken into account with regards to the current volatility that's there, and for it to have a further substantial rise in the medium to longer term duration.
Okay. You talked a lot about kind of what we're seeing in terms of flows, investor sentiment. Where do you pick up those opportunities then?
I think with regards to opportunities, we have corporate earnings coming in also. And I think with regards to corporate earnings, we might expect a few more positive surprises as opposed to negative ones. So with regards to inflow or with regards to investor sentiments becoming positive, right now would be a better opportunity for them to look back into Indian economies for the sectors that were taken a blowback or the sectors that still have a good positive response, like you have your capital goods, you have telecom, IT, logistics, so on and so forth.
All right, Tanvi, thank you for your insights. Tanvi Kanchan is VP and Head of Strategy at Anand Rathi Shares and Stockbrokers with us here on Bloomberg Markets Asia. Let's check in on the Indian markets. We